Hey guys, welcome to lesson number 3. In this lesson, we're going to be having a look at the natural minor scale. Now, in the last lesson, we had a look at the major scale, and I also went over what tones and semitones were. Now, if you haven't seen that, I suggest you go watch that first. I'll pop it in the top right-hand corner just over there for you. So firstly, what's the difference between a major scale and a natural minor scale? Well, most of you have heard the term major and also the term minor, and a lot of you probably associate major with happy and minor with sad. Now, that's okay, you can do that, but I want to rewire your brain a little bit here. I want you to think of major being brighter than minor. Doesn't matter if we're talking about major scales versus minor scales, or if we're talking about major chords versus minor chords, something that we're going to have a look into in this course. So if you guys can turn to page 8 in your books. Now, if you don't have a copy of my book, you can grab one at www.NXISEWOLF.com. I'll put the link in the description down below. All right, let's go. Now, the reason I want you to refer to the major scale as brighter than the darker minor scale is that later on, when you start to learn your modes and get into modal movement, yes, I know that's a little bit of alien talk there, but when you do look at modes, it's just going to be a little bit easier to digest. And if you don't know what modes are at the moment, don't worry about it. Let's just get the basics out of the way first. All right, so just like the major scales, there are 12 minor scales to learn as well. And just like the major scale, there is also a scale formula. Remember the scale formula from the major scale? It was tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, right? And that gave us a major scale. And we could take that formula anywhere and start on any key, apply the formula, and we could get a major scale from it. Well, that is the exact same thing with the minor scale. The only difference is the minor scale has a different formula. So the scale formula for the natural minor scale is tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone. Or you can remember it as TST, TSTT. Pretty straightforward. So let's have a look at how we can apply that formula to create a natural minor scale. So I'm going to start not on C today, I'm actually going to start on A. So I'm going to put my thumb on A. And remember, we don't say tone when we press A. We say tone only when we move. So again, thumb on A. A tone away from an A is a B. A semitone away from a B is a C. A tone away from a C is a D. And again, a tone away from a D is an E. A semitone away from an E is an F. A tone away from an F is a G. And lastly, a tone away from a G is an A. And we're back to that octave that I discussed in the last lesson, isn't it? Remember when I said when we go from C to C or a note to another note, that's one octave when we complete that scale. All right, fantastic. So let's have a little listen to another example of a natural minor scale. Let's do E minor. So I'm going to locate my E. And now I'm going to apply that tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone formula. And we're going to get something like this. A tone away from an E is an F sharp. A semitone away from the F sharp is a G. A tone away from the G is an A. A tone away from the A is a B. A semitone away from the B is a C. A tone away from that C is a D. And then lastly, another tone away from that D is an E. And there we have our octave again. Now, what I'm going to show you is a direct comparison between the major scale sound and the minor scale sound. So for this example, I'm going to be playing the C major scale, and then I'm going to get that C major scale, and instead of applying that tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, so that major scale formula, I'm actually going to apply the minor scale formula, still starting from C. So we're going to have a listen to C major scale versus the C minor scale. And this is how they sound. So just by listening to that C major scale, well, that sounded pretty bright, didn't it? It sounded pretty on the happier side, even though I said, hey, don't, stop using the word happy. I'm still going to throw it in there because I know a lot of you are still pretty used to referring to the major sound as happy. But overall, yeah, it did sound happy and it did sound bright. Now, let's have a listen to the C minor. Now that sounded way darker, way moodier, and a little bit more sad as well, didn't it? Right? So If you noticed as well, there were a few black notes that I hit there as well. Now, why is that? Well, that's because when we started on C, our root note, and we played the natural minor scale formula, tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone, well, that introduces some black notes, which in this case were the E flat, A flat, and B flat. So I hope that sums up the basics of how to create the natural minor scale. And in the next lesson, we're going to actually be having a look at how to make major, minor, and diminished triad chords. I'll see you guys in the next lesson.